All right, guys. So failing CNBC stock picker slash entertainer Jim Cramer, who just a few months ago was freaking out about meme stocks causing his hedge fund buddies to lose money, is now freaking out about the fact that people are walking around lawfully, right, unvaccinated, right? That's what he's freaking out about. And he's so freaked out about this that he's actually calling for Biden to step up and to mandate this and use the military if they have to, right? That's literally what the man advocated for on his network that's supposed to be about finance and stocks, right? He's now talking about pushing vaccine mandates. So let's actually listen to him go off in this segment. Take a listen.
He wants to be the bad guy. So we've allowed a pastiche of uncoordinated health organizations to dictate an on-again, off-again series of measures that mostly just leave us baffled and confused. We haven't centralized the issue to the point where the White House actually seems to take responsibility. Let's see. First was the CDC, and then the FDA, then the National Institutes of Health, mostly coordinating policy through talk shows. Then we left vaccination policy to individual companies. Now it's toothless OSHA going back and forth on what's allowed in factories, but nobody with any power is saying the frontline workers need to be vaccinated. It's just plain wrong, and most of us are sick of it, even as a vocal anti-vax minority is always grabbing the mic. This charade must end. The government must require vaccinations, not of this group or that group, not company by company, not cruise ship by cruise ship or airline by airline or governor by governor. The buck stops at the White House. Some of us are old enough to remember when we were told we had to get a needle stuck into our arms because of some disease that was so scary we were afraid to talk about it. The disease was called polio. No one knew how you got it, but you were scared to go to a place where anyone might congregate, a swimming pool, a park. Then we got a vaccine that worked, and President Eisenhower said we would end polio. He pulled it off because he didn't give us any choice. Soon after, as if the needle were too hard, they came up with a sugar cube. They being the scientists at the time. And we lined up and took them, too. Mine tasted like maraschino cherries. Yeah, like the Del Monte fruit cocktail my mom served, but only better. Lord knows what happened if you didn't partake. But back then, anyone who refused to get vaccinated would get ratted out immediately because we knew that person could hurt other people. The commonweal was a commonweal. Now we're engaged in a similar struggle with COVID, and Eisenhower would be aghast. We have immunocompromised people who are incubators for every variant to come, walking around lawfully unvaccinated? That's psychotic. We have companies that have tried hard to get people vaccinated and now backing down. We have governors who want to be president by grandstanding on a foolish states' right issue, the right to get sick, get other people sick. So it's time to admit that we have to go to war against COVID. Require vaccination universally. Have the military run it. If you don't want to get vaccinated, you better be ready to prove your conscientious objector status in court.
Boy, I gotta say, Jim Cramer is an entertaining guy, right? And having worked in the financial services industry, yes, I've heard this guy talk a lot. A vast majority of the time, he is actually wrong about the things that he says, right? In fact, a quick Google search, you can easily find a ton of articles that have documented Jim Cramer's history of being wrong in a profession that he claims to be an expert in, right? Which is picking stocks, right? In fact, there's been statistical analysis that has proven that the dude is wrong a majority of the time, right? He only has like a 47% accuracy rate. Okay, so if you're following this dude's investment advice, you're probably losing money for the most part. I mean, the dude was responsible for one of probably the worst calls in history when back in 2009, right, when he published his book, Getting Back to Even, he basically told people to buy Hewlett Packard, right, as one of his 12 stock picks. And between the date that the book was published, which was October 2009, and the date that he told people to sell the stock, right, which was November 2012, it had a total return of negative 73.83%. Okay, so you basically would have lost 3/4 of your investment if you had took that investment recommendation, right? And that's not all. After he told people to sell, he urgently told people to sell that stock, Hewlett Packard, and Best Buy as well too, on that day. Over the next 6 months, those two stocks basically went up over 100%. Both of them. Okay, so basically, if you would have followed this man's investment advice in regards to those two recommendations, you would have lost over 3/4 of your money, right, initially, and then you would have lost out on doubling your money. Okay, so again, this guy is really an entertainer. Okay, he's an entertainer, because acting like what's going to happen in the market is profitable. It's hard to get people to watch if you just tell them to buy the S&P 500 and just sit on it for the rest of their lives, right? Which is what most people should do. Again, this is not investment advice, but I guarantee you that will probably generate a better return for you than what Jim Cramer recommends. However, this video is not about Jim Cramer's horribly wrong stock predictions. It's about the fact that he now thinks that he is a medical professional and he should be giving public health advice to the president, right? And going out of the way to basically call people who are unvaccinated psychotic, while also suggesting that Biden used the military in order to force people to be vaccinated. And if you happen to not do it, then he's basically saying that you should be marginalized from society, okay, segregated from society, and then also misrepresenting history, right? And here's the thing that kind of kills me. I hate how these people try to act like they're not people out there that are pro-vaccine but anti-mandate, okay? And you would find that I think that most people that are against the mandate are actually pro-vaccination, that are just like, you know what, I'm cool with the vaccine, and we think people should get the vaccine. However, we just don't think that it should be mandated. We don't think it's right. And he tries to use an apples to oranges comparison with the whole polio vaccine, in which he strongly implies that Eisenhower had mandated the vaccine, when that's not actually what happened. And part of the reason why is not because he didn't want to, it's because he really didn't need to. First of all, polio is a disease that, in some cases can attack the brain and the spinal cord and can cause people to get paralyzed, right? So when people saw that back in the day, right, during the 1950s, people were freaked out, right? People were scared because what they saw that was happening to people that got this disease, adults and children, was devastating, right? So they didn't really need that much convincing in order to actually get the vaccine, because they knew what was the alternative if they didn't get it, right? So a lot of people kind of went along with it because they did a cost-benefit analysis in regards to whether or not they should actually get it, right? So back then, there wasn't really much pushback as Eisenhower was rolling out his program, right, in order to try to get the vaccine distributed across the country, because people wanted it, right? So they lined up to get it. Now, Eisenhower did say if people weren't cooperating that he would, basically try to mandate it, but he never actually really had to. But Cramer here is sitting here trying to imply that Eisenhower had mandated it, right? Had forced shots into people's arms, and that's not necessarily the case. It was a different time period. People had a different perception of the cost benefit analysis of getting the vaccine versus potentially catching a disease like polio, right? But again, in order to explain that requires doing a little bit of research and nuance, which I don't think Jim Cramer really specializes in, because again, at the end of the day, he's an entertainer, right? And what kills me about a lot of these people that go up here and they say this type of stuff, it's like they don't believe that the public is able to do a cost benefit analysis in regards to whether or not they should get the vaccine, okay? Because people, like with polio, they saw the effects, like people can see the effects of COVID, right? And they can look at the data and make a determination for themselves what they want to do, right? If the disease is devastating enough, trust me, people are going to line up and get it, right? If the vaccine data is there and it clearly shows that, hey, you know what, it's effective, people are going to get it, right? That's just what it is, right? You don't have to force anybody to do anything if the data lines up. So people can do their own cost benefit analysis. It is what it is. And they're also acting like there's evidence to support the idea that, well, if everybody, 100% of the population was vaccinated, particularly for this disease, right, COVID, they're acting like there's evidence out there to support the idea that, okay, well, that just means that the disease is going to go away, right? That we won't have to deal with it anymore, when they don't have any evidence whatsoever to support that idea. Mainly because there's no country out there that's 100% vaccinated yet. And even the most vaccinated countries in the world are still having spikes in cases, right? So despite all this man still comes out here and advocates basically for Biden to become a full-blown authoritarian, right? The thing that they claimed that Trump was, not necessarily him, but, the left-wing media claimed Trump was authoritarian or fascist, basically advocating for Biden to use the military to force people to get shots, right? Again, it's insane to hear this sometimes from the left, because it's like, again, what y'all were complaining about under Trump is the exact same thing that you guys are doing right now. You want to talk about authoritarianism, right? What Jim Cramer essentially advocating for is the essence of an authoritarian society. Again, this type of stuff, it really blows my mind. It frustrates me because he's trying to paint people who, are against the mandate as anti-vax, and that's just not true. A lot of people that are not for the mandate are pro-vax, and they encourage people to get vaccinated because obviously there are benefits, okay? But at the same time, society as a whole and each individual person can do a cost-benefit analysis and to determine whether or not it's best for them and what they want to do, right? The same way society did with polio. And it just so happened in the case of polio, people were scared so much until they was like, you know what, we just gonna get it, right? We have to. No federal mandate from the president was required. In this situation right here, people look at COVID and they say, okay, well, sometimes people have symptoms, sometimes people don't. Those symptoms can be very severe, right, and cause hospitalization and can be life-threatening. This is the death rate. And they make a decision about what they want to do. That's basically how it's supposed to work, right? That's the idea of having individual freedom, okay? But hey, seems like guys like Jim Cramer don't necessarily believe in that. And, it's funny because I'm surprised that he would actually come out here and advocate for this, because him and his cronies are the ones that benefited from the lockdowns and shutdown last year, right? If the government goes back into a lockdown or a shutdown where they have to print even more money, guess who's going to get paid first, right? Wall Street's going to get paid first. They're going to get held up no matter what, mainly from the government giving them money, right, through fiscal policy, and then through monetary policy and the feds. They're going to keep money cheap, right? Interest rates low. So again, those guys benefit the most from more lockdowns. So I'm actually surprised to hear him come out here and say this. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.